Welcome to the Sourcing Industry Landscape Podcast, powered by SIG.org and hosted by Dawn Tiura.
Well, folks, I have a very special guest with me today, and I'm excited to introduce you to Celeste Anderson. Now, Celeste Anderson is the Chief Revenue Officer for a company called Jalasoft. And Celeste, first, I just want to welcome you to the studio.
Thank you. Thank you, Dawn. I'm very happy to be here.
So I was really excited when I first learned about your company and when you first started getting involved in SIG. So I'm going to tell folks a little bit, but then I'd love to ask you some more questions. But you're a global technology services company known for developing world-class engineering talent through your Jala University. It's a unique nonprofit training program. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It's the talent that comes through our organization over the last 20 years has come through originally boot camps that were funded through foundations and charitable donations to really lift young folks from their economies in different Latin American countries. But over the last few years, we've been able to get an accredited four-year university where we've got engineers graduating. Now our first big class is coming up for 4 full years. I've worked with MIT, I've worked with everyone, and this is talent like I've never seen. And their educations are fully funded, and they are guaranteed for 4 years to work in incredible environments. So it's such a win-win. It's been really wonderful.
So after they graduate, they work for you for 4 years.
They do. They work for us, but we seed them into our client accounts. And, the biggest issue a lot of clients are facing these days is just the churn. They get the A team in with their partners. And then 3 months in, they've taught all these folks all this stuff. And next thing you know, your partners are switching them out with other contractors. And in this case, you're guaranteed these folks, and they learn on our dime. And we even provide the interns sometimes at next to nothing, if not nothing, if there's enough need with our client. And so it's been a really good win-win for the clients and for our students.
Well, I think that's absolutely amazing. And the students are coming from underprivileged or
areas. Yeah. We have about 2,000 applicants every year to our university, and only 200 get through. So when you look at the 7 to 8 Latin American countries that we primarily focus in, 200 is not a lot. This is really top tier talent. They have to speak very fluent and good English. And they've got to go through a series of tests to get through. But their social and personal situations are very, very tough. I mean, I met one gentleman just a couple of weeks ago, and he's now a software engineer. He's got a small family. He's been able to buy himself a home in Colombia, and he remembers laying under the bed, his family being shot at by cartel. So, and he's doing a great job for our customers. So we've got some great stories.
Yeah, and all people want to do is earn an honest living, and you're giving them that opportunity. I think it's amazing what you guys do. But we're going to talk. But the reason I wanted you on was, one, you're amazing, and your company is amazing. I was so impressed. But we want to talk about beyond staff augmentation, why it's time to evolve towards managed services. And so I think this is just a really great conversation. So can you tell us what is it? Why is it time to evolve?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of reasons, but staff augmentation was originally designed for flexibility, right? In that sense, it definitely worked. Over time, it's created unintended consequences, right? From a sourcing and procurement perspective, just putting on that hat only. But it does, from a sourcing standpoint, it does introduce risk. It's unpredictable. There's a lot of misalignment. You end up negotiating headcount instead of business outcomes. So budgets fluctuate month to month. Vendors rotate people. There's very little incentive to drive, efficiency or innovation, because basically I worked for some of the largest outsourcing organization. And even as we tried to introduce AI, it would be very frustrating to me as a person, as a client advocate working with sourcing folks, because I'd say, look, we can bring in these tools, we can bring in automation, and they would want to take it only to a certain point, because the way they were compensated was strictly butts and seats. The more people that are there, that's how they make their money. So the more you introduce automation, the more likely they are to lose that profit margin and lose that, revenue. So it was very tough and very frustrating. And in our case, it's completely different, because our graduates are geared towards bringing automation. Managed services, it just makes sense as people are moving more towards outcomes based, milestones based, not bodies and, that they could get themselves. It really is about, what are you trying to do? How fast can you do it? What is what's going to change? How does it impact my bottom line? How is it going to, improve my customer service? And you really step up to that. And you actually, even in our case, I mean, we're willing to sign up to penalties. We're willing to sign up for risk reward and share the burden of those things. We feel that confident about what we can do. I mean, I've been in this space for 30 years. I've seen the staff model, work, and I've seen, like I said, it rewards volume. It doesn't reward value, and for procurement, how they're measured, that doesn't work. It's changed, and they're being measured on value. They're being measured on quality. They're being measured on impact to the earnings, right?
Yes.
Impact to the, impact to profit and customer sats. And so, the sourcing VP, sourcing executive is so much more of a strategic role these days, and respecting that and understanding that. That's why I've just had so many recently say, hey, I'm being asked about managed services. I've got 18 different partners. I've got, I walk around the room and I see all these different companies that are doing these. There's got to be a better way. And, and he's not holding them accountable for KPIs that he's being measured or she's being measured for. So, it's just a good time. The time is now, especially with AI and automation.
So how does moving to a managed services model change the relationship then between procurement and the folks that are their vendors?
Oh, good question. I would say it completely changes it for the better, right? When you shift from T&M to managed services, the conversation moves from how many people do we need to what outcomes are we trying to achieve, right? And you really get a partner in that capability. As a procurement person, the vendor now, procurement executives, I hate to call ourselves vendors because I really do like to think of myself as more of a partner than a vendor. But still, the procurement relationship and that vendor relationship, they share accountability. That's a big change. So contracts become outcomes based, they're not effort based. That means budget stabilized. You can forecast multi-year spend, and both sides start managing value streams instead of headcount. In our experience at Jalasoft, I will tell you this creates a much deeper trust and transparency. Procurement gains measurable KPIs tied to delivery and innovation, and we gain the charity to invest in R&D, process improvement because success is shared. So I just went to a planning function recently with my CEO and my CFO and my chief marketing officer, and it was all about, where do we put our funds? And it's with those partners, those sourcing organizations of clients where we have that win-win and that risk-reward relationship where we see the benefits of bringing them innovation, bringing them AI, because we know we can deliver more, right? So we're still going to be compensated. We're just not, the compensation isn't focused on headcount, if that makes sense.
It does, but so the regular model is it's time and materials, and so
exactly.
Yeah, and so is this statement of work then, or is a statement of work still too basic?
No, typically I think the statement of work is often too basic, but it's evolving tremendously, where, you go from, hourly based or a monthly, fixed, even companies are testing like in small areas, hybrid models, like a mix of, let's say I can give you an example with one particular client, UPS, American Express is another one. In my past, I've seen them have thousands of contractors and mixed and disparately, around the organization. And they've piloted managed service as a proof of concept where they've said, okay, we've got, 150 quality engineers doing testing for SAP and doing testing for Salesforce. And we want to be able to reduce that down. And we think managed services might be the path. And so they carve out a piece, and over 6 months, they can see the benefits of moving to fixed price, moving to predictability. They've got core teams who are measured on what the output, the quality of the product, the speed to market with the changes in the product, the improvements in customer sats and things like that. And those are those milestones at the end of each month where you don't get compensated, fully unless you're delivering those things. And you baseline, you say, okay, this is what that group, it's easier to do a due diligence and figure out, okay, in this group of 12, we know what they're doing, what they're supposed to be doing. We know they're all working on one environment. So we're going to take that group We're going to baseline over the last 6 months. What have they been able to deliver? And then we create a plan of what it looks like from at the end of 6 months. It should be this. It should be, instead of 12 people, 8 people. Now you take 4 of those 12, and if they're really strategic, you free them up for other things.
Yeah.
And then you're paying for less people, but also your speed to market is quicker. There's so many things that we're able to do.
I love
Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does, because as this is one of the categories I used to source, and I always tried to incentivize them to say, "Can't you lower your headcount? I'd rather pay more for the remaining people for you to push quality and some kind of innovation to be able to lower your headcount." And it never made sense why they didn't say, "Well, yes," because if I lowered my headcount and I'm paying more for the remaining people, it just freed up a resource. They can go work someplace else. And so it's a win-win. But I had such a hard time getting that across to people. So
You're
I love
100% right. One thing I will say that's really changed, though, because I started in this business, 30 years ago in IT, but 20 plus years ago in the really truly outsourcing, when you'd ask a CIO or a chief procurement person, what percentage of your people are working on just maintaining, keeping the lights on, and what percentage are doing new strategic application development or product development. It would be like 80-20. So so in that case, it made a lot of sense to outsource as many people as you could, because basically it's labor arbitrage, and you've got environments where CMMI was in place, maturity models. But now every organization is mature. It's not about give us your mess for less anymore. Now, so sourcing companies or sourcing individuals really have an issue with the risk associated with a lot of their partners. Exactly. And how do you control that? How do you manage, if you're not understanding exactly what they're delivering, and then they're out using AI and you don't know they're using AI, and even these companies don't have control, there's a huge risk there. So, all of that has to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what advice would you give to a sourcing leader? Let's say they want to start this kind of transformation. They've always just had butts and seats that they paid for, and they relied on staff augmentation for years. But now I want to move to managed services. Do I need a new provider, or can I work with the ones I have to move into managed services?
Oh, I think they can do both. I think the biggest thing I tell them, one, I do have a presentation I've given. So if you ever want me to do like a webinar, I can. I actually have a pretty decent presentation that's got some very significant, milestones through the transformation of going from T&M to say a true full managed services. But the biggest thing I tell them is you don't have to flip the switch, right? Overnight. It's an evolution. It's not a disruption. So start with a pilot, like I said. Pick a function where the outcomes are easy to define and measure, establish baseline SLAs and success metrics. Then it helps you get the buy-in, because you'll get a lot of pushback. A lot of CIO organizations and product development and even product management parts of organizations, they feel like they've got control if it's staff augmentation. Those people are taking direction from them. And so when sourcing steps in and they've become a lot more strategic, these folks get defensive. They feel like they're losing control. They feel like, oh, they're policing me. They think they can do it better. So I think it makes sense to bring them in early, have the conversations, educate them a little bit, and say, look, we just want to, we want you to be seen, Mr. CIO, Mr. VP of Engineering, as strategic. And we want to help you as your partner internally in the organization to be strategic. So kind of help them along, help it be partly their idea, so they're not so defensive. Then once you prove it with a small environment, you'll have every organization, every business unit in your organization knocking on your door saying, please help me. And that, to me, the good sourcing executives I've met, that's all they care about. They want to feel like they're adding value. They want to be a partner. They don't want to be seen as an auditor or a police. They really do want to partner, and sometimes they get pushed back. I think this kind of exercise helps, establish a sourcing executive as a true partner, but bring them in early, educate them. And like I said, you don't have to do it all at once. You can bundle adjacent roles like QA, DevOps, automation. You can bundle that into a single managed service, measure results over quarter. Once you have data, it's a lot easier to buy the internal buy-in. And I think that's one of the key messages.
So if I were working with Jalasoft, I have just a question for you. And you brought in a great team. And let's say we have these 8 people and they're just doing amazingly well. Could I ever hire them to be a captive for just, that they actually now belong to me as employees, or do you ever turn people over?
All of our people are guaranteed committed to us for 4 years. So after four, obviously, and however, we're very flexible. We've worked with a couple clients, especially clients that have decided to deliver their own captive, develop their own captive organization, say offshore or wherever. And if they're doing that, they're going in that direction. We're a lot more flexible than some of the big players because we don't see them as competition.
Yeah.
We can't force our folks to leave, but they do need to stay with us for 4 years. We are talking about creating models where if at the end of 2 years, as long as we knew they'd be safe and they could stay, we're very open to that. But for the most part, you're guaranteed, and the costs are very competitive with even India offshore, believe it or not, because we are helping to fund their first 4 years of employment. So we're able to be aggressive with the rates. The difference is you get the, English perfect, culturally aligned, the same time zone.
Yes.
It's a much more pleasant experience, I believe, for most companies, leveraging LATAM talent when they speak great English and they're very well educated. But it doesn't discount offshore in India as well. Those are some talented folks as well. So I don't want to, a good mix is always healthy. But yeah, we're very open. Most of the time our folks stay with us that 4 years, and then they either go on, start their own companies, or they are working for one of our clients. Now,
awesome.
That being said, it's been the last 4 years that we had the true 4-year university. We've had for 20 plus years these boot camps that bring out incredible talent. Those go up to 2 years. Every client I've met so far, the folks that have been there 14 years, 13 years. They like what they get with I haven't seen a single client ask, the model is positive enough economically, but also because they get the extension of what's behind Jalasoft, the way we collaborate with our folks, the tools that we develop in R&D, our methodologies that are incredible of how we develop talent and bring them through. We share that with our clients to help them. So I have not seen one case where we don't have any client. All of our clients that I've met have been with us over 3 years. Of course, we have a couple new every year. So this year we've already had a few new clients, so they don't count. But of the 43, as I came on board and met them, all of them have been at least 8 years. Most of them are over 10. And at one client I went to recently, 5 of the top 6 folks in their organization and product development were 4 of our people, 14 years. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a pretty cool thing. So it must be cost effective enough, our model. And I really believe it is that doesn't typically happen, but absolutely we're flexible.
Well, this is why you're the Chief Revenue Officer, because you tell the story so beautifully. It's just fantastic. So I want to thank you for your time today. I'm going to make sure that there's a link to this recording so people can reach out to you directly. It is such a great story that it needs to be known. It needs to be known within the SIG community what great service you're doing for these people. It warms my heart. So I'm so happy.
I appreciate you giving me an audience and a platform. And like I said, I have about a 40-minute presentation when you include some questions. If anybody wants to have that one-on-one, feel free to give out my contact information. And I have no issue at all presenting it and even sharing it. And they could use it as an internal discussion document.
Absolutely. Well, thank you and have a wonderful day. And folks, make sure you're tuning into the podcast. We get brilliant people like this. And so it's always so much fun what I get to do for my living. So Celeste, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Dawn. Thanks so much. Have a great week.
Thank you. So folks, this is Celeste from Jalasoft, and she is the Chief Revenue Officer. Make sure you look them up. Make sure that you get in contact with Celeste. She needs to be in your network. So
thank you, Dawn. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the Sourcing Industry Landscape podcast through iTunes or your favorite podcast app. Want to nominate yourself or someone else for an interview? Email us at podcast@sig.org.